You're about to learn from some of the best. Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki are probably two of the most prominent examples when it comes to people that have used the leverage of debt to create real estate empires worth billions. But that's just scratching the surface, because I think there's something wrong with our societal attitude and perception of debt that's preventing more people from achieving the same success. And that's exactly what I want to show you, especially in the backdrop of what happened this month in the traditional financial markets in the US. So subscribe to the channel and watch this before I tell you more about it.
Well, in Rich Dad Poor Dad, I came out in 1997 and I said, your house is not an asset. And it drove people nuts. It just went crazy on me, because that's a common belief. But when you can't make your house payments, you find out is the biggest liability you got, and many of the times.
It's turned out to be very much more correct than you even thought.
Right.
When you look at what's happened to home prices.
Right. And Donald and I love real estate. I love real estate. I think it's the best thing going, better than sliced bread. But if you're not smart with it, it's like a loaded gun. You know, you can protect yourself or you can kill yourself with it. So real estate is, to me, the best vehicle, but you've got to be smart with it, because we're using debt. And debt is the two-edged sword out there. So you use debt, I use debt, but the more debt you use, actually you have to be smarter. So you can use debt to get richer. You can also use debt to wipe you out. So that's why, you know, I continue on saying we need financial education. To just say to somebody, get out of debt, well, that's not accurate. You use debt, don't you?
Debt is a great thing, and to be big and to be very successful, debt is a very useful weapon. But you have to be very careful.
That's correct.
Robert Kiyosaki is in debt to the tune of nearly $1.2 billion at the moment, while the average American holds around $100,000 worth of debt. So why is it that most Americans are crushed under that burden for decades of their life? Someone like Robert Kiyosaki can sleep easy even at the age of 77. It's because that debt accumulated over decades of his life has been invested into stacking up cash flowing assets, rental properties in his case, which simultaneously serve as the collateral for his next tranche of debt, and so on until the property empire expands. And what's interesting is that with such high net worth clients like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki, banks themselves almost become long-term partners by repeatedly lending on favorable terms and getting back their money over time with interest, in a way becoming invested in the success of their own client. As they say, if you owe the bank $100,000, you're in trouble. If you owe the bank $1 billion, the bank is in trouble. If you've read Robert Kiyosaki's most successful book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, you realize what drives this countercultural attitude toward debt. Simply put, Robert defines what an asset is not just as something you have ownership over, but something that is actively putting money in your pocket. Similarly, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Seen from this angle, buying a house on mortgage doesn't make it an asset, but buying it in a strategic location to rent it out for a cost that's more than covers the mortgage means it is putting money into your pocket while also becoming an asset on your balance sheet. Obviously, you understand where the greatest gap for most people lies. It's the gap of financial intelligence, since one wrong move with borrowed money sinks you further into debt and interest, enveloping you like quicksand that too many people are afraid of. Using debt is how Donald Trump got rich from the New York real estate scene in the 1980s, and it's by employing that same countercultural advice that's almost reserved for people that can first build up enough financial acumen and intelligence to use it. And here's the first part of that financial acumen. It's the understanding that money is not really a scarce resource in the world, which is the first step to doing away with a scarcity mindset that crushes people's ambition by suppressing their desires and telling them to just live their life below their means. Both Kiyosaki and Trump rejected that mindset.
The other thing with when people say live below your means, you don't like to live below your means, do you?
No.
No. And I think when you say to somebody live below your means, you wipe their spirit out. It's like saying to somebody, if you want to lose weight, go on a starvation diet. It doesn't make you healthier to starve yourself. So I would rather get financially educated. That's why I read your books, because this is my greatest asset. I want to feed my brain so that I can expand my means without getting into excessive debt or where I start to lose. Because debt, like I say, is a two-edged sword. But telling somebody to live below your means is almost inhumane. I never felt good doing it. I wanted to strive to do better every day. I want to do better every day.
Well, I have a friend who was not successful at all, but was really up and coming. And he had a thing. He would only fly first class. I'm not saying do this because for somebody it won't work, but he needed that mentally.
Right.
He wanted to fly first class because mentally he wanted to think he was the best, and that's it. And even though he didn't have much money at the time, this is years ago, he would always fly. I used to criticize him, but it put him in a good state of mind, and he became a very, very successful guy.
Yes.
Very, very successful. And I've always remembered that. He would never fly coach. He would always fly first class, even though he didn't have the means to fly. So, look, it's complicated, but whatever it takes to train that.
Not just that, I think a part of that is also putting yourself in the vicinity of people more accomplished than you, making it more likely that you form connections and perhaps get closer to an opportunity. That's why I've never liked the frugal and limiting advice that some financial gurus on the internet give you by telling you to save up on the $3 morning coffee and make it at home instead to save money. It's not just the time you'd be sinking into something so trivial, but also the fact that it's good sometimes to go to a high-end establishment or restaurant for their coffee and food, and it's got less to do with the coffee and more with the ambiance and the people you find there. Maybe there's a conversation that gets rolling across the table, and maybe you realize you don't want to go back to your local Starbucks, which ignites a drive inside of you to improve your finances. Training the mindset is more than half the work, and it's a tragedy that too many people in the world don't even complete that first half.
And that's my message, is achieve it, and then you can take it or leave it. But if you don't achieve it, then it's always something away from you. So again, that's why I'd be redundant about this, living below your means. I don't think that makes your spirit happy. It kills your spirit. Also, if you don't have the financial education, when somebody says your house is an asset or these mutual funds are good or the stock will go up, and you don't know the difference between a good investment and a bad investment, because real estate can be a bad investment, stocks can be a bad investment. If you don't know good investment advice from bad investment advice, then you're going to get taken. This world is not kind, should we say.
The hardest thing that I've witnessed over the last year is seeing people that were very hardworking and very conservative that invested in the stocks. And I'm not talking about high-flying stocks. I'm talking about very solid companies. And their net worth is 50% of what it was a year ago, and they haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
Now, they put their money in stocks, so I guess you could say that's wrong, but it's really not wrong because historically that's been okay. So they went into conservative stocks, and a year later, they're worth 50%, and all they've done is worked. And that's the hardest thing I've seen.
It's tragedy. The thing that I want to say is this: you can invest in gold and lose money. You can invest in real estate and lose money. You can lose stocks and lose money. You can invest in oil and lose money. You can also make a lot of money in all those things. So really the reason we get together is because your financial intelligence, your financial IQ makes something valuable or not value. Like I said, you have to know a good investment from a bad investment, good advice from bad advice.
I think we saw a live example of that in early August when America saw a major drop in all three stock indices on a Monday morning, accelerated by fears of recession, and it was followed around the same week by a massive slump in the crypto market. The truth is that even the tried and true wealth vehicles like real estate blue chip stocks, as well as new tech like crypto, can make people rich or they can make them poor. But here's the largest difference. Someone that understands the market and how money works almost always comes out on top. If you ask someone like Warren Buffett what his investment strategy was, he'll give you a simple yet ingenious answer. Just trust the process. Investing in the stock market is more about the mind game than what the money and the stocks are doing. It's about not selling out of panic or buying out of haste. It's about holding on to the companies and stocks that you believe in and letting the years and even decades take their course. There will be highs and lows when you zoom in, but the picture becomes broader when you zoom out and often looks more encouraging. That's what people like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki understand, while the average person does not. And when you think about it, it's truly something to realize that the major difference really just lies in the mental models that we've created about money and finance. Changing that should be the easiest thing in the world and yet can be also the most difficult. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this conversation. It's not financial advice, but I just believe it's a really interesting window into the minds of two very rich men who have gone against the tide of traditional finance advice and showed that it's probably time for an update in what we teach new generations about money.